everywhere. So, there we go. Family Wealth, James Hughes Jr. We want to welcome everybody who has not been here with us. My name is Cherie Warwick. I'm the CEO of the 10K Project. We are building the nation's largest community of Black individuals who want to do all sorts of alternative investments. And we have a specific alternative investment that we have applied for, something called equity crowdfunding. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to share with you, with all of you here on Instagram, here in Zoom, all over our social media, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Share with you about the Family Wealth Challenge, and hopefully there will be some of you who wants to participate. So I'm also going to bring up the beautiful Talisha here. So we've got the Bronx here, we've got Severn, Maryland, we've got Richard here, we've got West Palm Beach, we've got DMV. Yes, everybody, let us know where you're coming from. Montgomery, Alabama, Kansas City, Missouri. How is everybody doing tonight? Tell us what city and state you are coming from. Talisha? Talisha is a little frozen right now, so I'm hoping that she's able to come back on with us. In the meantime, we're going to get started. Oops. She probably has to come back in. So I want her to be able to hear all about what we're talking about tonight with regards to how do we build Black wealth within our families. Hello, Talisha.
Hello, can you hear me now?
How are you doing?
Awesome, there we go. Didn't like me for a minute.
So everybody on Instagram, y'all gonna see like my whole everything. That is Talisha. She's joining me tonight to talk about building Black wealth within the Black families, and also the Family Wealth Challenge. So if you wonder on Instagram who I'm looking at, we're on Zoom, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Periscope. So good evening to everybody. We see Detroit here, we see Memphis, we've got Tulsa in the house. We're so happy to have everyone here as well. Feel free to share this stream, share it with your family, your friends, etc., because we want to get as many people involved in the Black Family Wealth Challenge as possible. We know right now that everyone is on pins and needles with regards to the election. And if you want to talk about something else, we are talking about money and Black wealth here. So, you know, Talisha, is there anything you want to say to the family before we get started?
Thanking them for joining us this evening, and let's get right on into it.
All righty then. And for those of you on Instagram, if you want to see the beautiful Talisha, you can hop on over to Facebook. You can find us at Black 10K Project. So hop on over to Facebook, find us at Black 10K Project, or on YouTube, either place. All righty then. So y'all know I'm a little old here. I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can see. I just need them just a little bit. So
I need them a lot.
So this, everybody, again, is from the Family Wealth book, James Hughes Jr., Keeping It All in the Family. We found out about this book from a family, a Black family that started off with $25 per month per family member and grew it to 7 figures in cash and assets. We did an interview with them. They spent an hour and a half with us. They told us all sorts of stuff with regards to how they set up their family banks. And this book was the foundation of what they used. So let's talk about family wealth plans here. The author says families fail to understand that the preservation of family wealth over a long period of time is unbelievably hard work. Work with the tremendous risk of failure balanced by a magnificent but distant reward. Most of us know that a process, often a difficult one, is essential to the achievement of any endeavor. Most of us also know that abandoning the process too soon because it seems too hard is the most common reason that endeavors fail. Families who choose to enter the process of long-term wealth preservation face the daunting fact that their process will never end if they are successful. They have to decide to continue the process literally for all the generations to come. When I, meaning the author, work with families who want to preserve their wealth, I explain this reality to them. To help them, and now you, decide whether to begin this process, I offer my favorite metaphor for family wealth preservation, the copper beech tree. If you don't know what a copper beech tree looks like and you want to see one, go to Rhode Island or Google it. I added that in, Google it. And look in the front yards of many, is what he says. Of many Newport mansions. When fully mature, a copper tree is the largest tree in the northeastern forest. It is a huge great tree with a beautiful crown of copper-colored leaves that needs 5 or 6 adults or 10 children holding hands to ring its trunk. Once mature, a copper beech tree will live for centuries. I'm gonna read this one last paragraph and then I'm gonna have you jump in, Talisha. Why is this beautiful tree my favorite metaphor for successful long-term wealth preservation by a family? First, think of the courage it takes to plant a tree that takes 150 years to mature. No one who plants the tree will ever see it full grown. Second, someone must invest love and patience to nurture it. Think of the hurricanes, ice and snow, pest, and fire that may consume the tree while it is too young to withstand the hazards. It needs help to survive these threats. Third, as it matures, it has to contend with humans who want to cut it down for its wood, and with the governments that want to put a road or a new housing development where it stands. He wrote this for Black people right there. He didn't know that he did it, but that's what he did. The issues the growing tree faces parallels those in the unfolding life of a family. To complete this metaphor, and it says here is the true story of a copper beech tree, but we'll talk about that later. They had so many gems, or he had so many gems in just these 4 paragraphs here. Talisha, I want to pass it off to you though. And again, for those of you who are on Instagram, that's the beautiful Talisha. You can see her and all of her beauty and gorgeousness. If you come to YouTube or Facebook, come to Black 10K Project on YouTube, Facebook, you can see both of us there. So, and thanks for all the hearts. Okay, everybody. Talisha, what do you think?
I think that's a really great analogy because, that makes sense. And we understand that, planting trees is a big issue. I know for anybody, even if you're not from the country, even in the city, when they make those little, indentations in the roads and whatever, and they plant the tree and it takes forever. Like you really think about that, but also that's how your family grows. Like you're going to do certain things that are not going to come to fruition in your lifetime, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do them. And I think people want that instant gratification of if I do this today, I'm going to make this investment and 2 days later, I'm going to see what happens. And that's not how any investment goes. This is a long haul. And that's why I think it's good to look at things from a plan, that there are stages that you go through. There's a planting stage, there's a pruning stage, there's a growth stage. Then there's that end where it truly comes to fruition. And like I said, you may or may not be a part of that. And likely you won't be, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that I liked about this section was that he talked about the different phases as well in a way that we could relate to. So he started off talking about how, first of all, it takes courage to have a 150-year wealth plan. So one of the things we learned from the book is that wealthy families think in terms of 100 years or 100 years plus. They think in terms of 4 generations out, and they really look at not just financial capital. We talked about it earlier this week that if a family only thinks about financial capital, they're going to lose. They also have to think about human capital and intellectual capital. And then one of the other things he says in here is that someone must invest love and patience to nurture this when it first gets started? So first of all, it takes courage. Second, it does take love, nurturing, and patience. Think of, he says, think of the hurricanes, ice and snow, pests, and fire that may consume the tree while it is too young to withstand those hazards. What do we think that means realistically in terms of us as a people, as Black families? It's just family members, period. As let's assume most of us are US citizens, even though we do have people from the UK that are a part of this. What are some of the things that we can identify that are the pests, the ice and the snow, the hurricanes? Talisha, you wanna hop in here?
I would say this is a great time to even make the analogy of like pandemic. We have something that truly impacted us on a global scale. So it didn't have to do anything about, where you were in the world. It's going to impact you. And you don't have any control about that. There are certain things like pests that you can. It can be, how do you manage your money? How do you get that, making sure that your taxes are paid? There are certain things that are in your control and certain things that aren't.
Right.
And making sure that you exercise diligence in the things that you do have control over and prepare as much as you can for the things that you can't, I think is a good way to kind of look at all those things, because you can't, prevent the hurricane from coming, but you can, board up the windows. You do the things that you do to be preemptive about those kind of things that help you. And I think this is where we have to, again, have that conversation, which is difficult when, again, you just want what you want right now. It's like, it's not going to happen that way. And there's so many steps in order just to get it set up. There's a lot of front end work that really needs to be done, even just to execute it and get it started.
Right. So a couple of things I could think of practically that the Preston family, that's the original family that we did the family bank interview with. One of the things that they said was, they had a couple of family members that died prematurely. Well, that in a way is a hurricane, right? Or pest or something like that happens. So they had a contingency plan for that already in place. And they talk about that in the family bank interview. Sometimes fire, for example, it doesn't start off in your house. It doesn't start off in your kitchen. I used to live in townhouses where I was always worried about what my neighbor next door, 2 doors, 3 doors down was doing, because if something caught fire, at their house, it would be nothing for it to sweep on over. If you live in an apartment, the same thing. Sometimes it's not something that you do. Sometimes it's something that your neighbor does. Sometimes for us, it's a job loss, or it's, all sorts of things. And if we aren't truly committed to this process, then what the author is saying is right, that there are going to be things thrown at you, thrown at me, thrown at us as we start this process. And if we're not rooted in something, in just a determination to continue moving, then it's not going to work. And I do think that, we need to be honest with ourselves. I think a lot of people do want the fast, and building wealth is not fast. It's not, glamorous, any of that. It is hard work, but the rewards are so much better. Richard is saying divorce, death of the breadwinner, illness, loss of a job. Absolutely. Those are things. And it may not be you individually. It may be within your family bank. It may be somebody else in the family bank that has one of those issues that could truly, put a monkey wrench in the plans. So
many other things. I think of like just, the changes of life. Like when you start this plan, what if you didn't plan on having a family and you have one? Your child becomes ill. That happens immediately, not only yourself, but what if your child has a terminal illness? What if you develop a terminal illness as yourself? Like there are certain things that, like I said, aren't able to be, they're able to be mitigated, but at some point they're not. So you do have to be really clear. And I think the honesty part is true. The difference between being rich and being wealthy. And we have to really make that determination of what we want to be. And that's a personal question that everybody has to really like, do I want it now or do I want it later? And how do I want it for others as well? Because it's not just singularly you when you're talking about your family.
Right, right. The other thing it says here is as it matures, it has to contend, meaning that the family, or in this case, it's the tree, but we know it's a family, has to contend with humans who want to cut it down for its wood, and with governments that want to put a road or a new housing development where it stands. The issues the growing tree faces parallel those in the unfolding life of a family. When I think about, let's say that you get 5 years down the road, you've got, as a family, let's say you have saved 6 figures, right? By that time, it's possible, depending on how much money income you have, how much money you've saved. Let's say you save 6 figures and you have, some stability within your family bank. And somebody decides to come, they want to cut your tree down for wood, meaning that, at least I think, they want to come in and take a portion of the funds, and not a reasonable portion of the funds. They want a big chunk of the funds for something that it maybe is riskier than the family would agree to. How do you handle that? With governments that want to put a road or new housing development in it, it could mean that literally. It could also mean it figuratively. There may be change in tax laws. There may be changes in other types of what do you call it, government allowances and things like that. I do think that, once you start this family bank, especially once you get to a certain point in your wealth, you will become hyper sensitive to what's happening on your local level, on your state level, on the national level, because by that point, you'll have things to protect. You'll have assets to protect. Percy is saying you have to constantly build the foundation in order to withstand the elements that come. Absolutely.
I think this also reminds me of the interview when Mr. Cook talked about family members. They had been going for several years, and then family members who were like, hey, I have this great opportunity. And he's like, we don't just come and have an opportunity kind of chat. And they were just constantly pitching ideas. And some of them were like, nope, we're not doing that because it's not in the purview. And other times they were like, okay, well, bring it to us and let's decide. So I think it's those kind of things where it's like, oh yeah, the latest and greatest thing could always dissuade you and think like, oh, let's just jump on this. And it may not be something that requires just, that it's hot and great. You really need to kind of look at it and survey it under, the long haul. How does it fit into your portfolio? What does it do for you? And does it just benefit this person, or does it benefit, again, the family? And I do think the changing aspects, as they said, like when Colonel Preston retired, that changed the trajectory of the family bank, what they were doing when they garnered the money. He said they had to do things differently once they hit a certain level.
Yes.
And they were having the conversations with the bank, like, oh, now you're asking us this kind of questions. Now we have to have different conversations on our side. So again, I think there's lots of conversations that are dynamic that come at different stages. And you just have to be like, oh, okay, we're going to have to think about that before you just jump in and make those decisions.
And I mean, I have to admit, I'd rather have a conversation of, we have too much money. What are we going to do? Like Richard is saying, he's moving to the Cayman Islands. I don't blame you, or you may have to move some of your money offshore or into crypto. We're not giving away financial advice or investing advice, not giving away any investing advice, but I think it's better to come from a more powerful position of, okay, we have money, we're comfortable, we're 65 years old, we can retire, we're not stressed for money, Social Security, yes, we will apply for it, but if it's not there, we're not stressing about that either. But that takes 20 years. Right now I have 20 years of true planning and just saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Somebody's asking how many families are suggested for this. Do you mean the Black Family Wealth Challenge? We want as many families as possible involved, as many families as possible.
And
So
again,
I'm
we
going to read.
also had this conversation of what family means, because I think
Oh,
a lot of
yes.
people think of
Why
what
don't you tell everybody what family
family
means?
can mean
Yes.
any grouping of individuals. They can be blood relatives, they could be your roommates or whatever. If you're single and this is a friend family, whatever it is that you want, however you want to organize the group of individuals, or even independently. I know for me, my family consists primarily of me and my daughter. So, but there are some extended aspects to that. Like she has like 4 different siblings, additional siblings that I'm responsible for as well, even though they're not my biological children. So
Mhm.
you frame it however you want to participate. But again, that's where you think about who will say yes, or who will be receptive to this information as well, because it's not always like you're going to have people are just going to jump at the chance to do it. The interview with the family, they said they had a lot of people that said no, they weren't
Mhm.
interested. They thought it was foolish. And then years later, they're like, oh, can I get in now? Can
Mhm.
I see what you're doing again?
And
So
they
they
talked
wanted to
about
hop in and
that.
out.
Yes.
So they're
Well,
like,
they talked about that, and actually they did let certain people in, but they had certain rules about it. So
mhm.
again, if you join the Family Wealth Challenge, Talisha is putting it in the chat here for everybody on Instagram. Go to familywealthchallenge.black. That's familywealthchallenge.black. You can look at the information and sign up if you want to be a part of the Family Wealth Challenge. So the last couple of paragraphs here, I'm going to just summarize. So again, we were talking about the copper beech tree here, and the author talks about one of Napoleon's greatest generals, who was later buried alongside his former commander, was reported to have the most beautiful garden in France. Standing with his head gardener, looking out over his estate, he observed the wonderful specimens of the world's great trees planted there. The general turned to the gardener and said, I see no copper beech tree here. The gardener replied, but no, such a tree takes 150 years to grow. The general said without a second's hesitation, then we must plant today. We have no time to waste. To embark on long-term wealth preservation is an act of extraordinary courage for a family, like the planting of a copper beech tree, since the family members who initiate the process will never know whether they are ultimately successful. If you are courageous and you want to be a wealth creator in the most profound sense, get started. There's no time to waste. There's no time to waste. So Richard is saying, let's have huge money problems that taxes won't even matter. Veronica says, I second that. People were saying a lot about Trump and his taxes, paying $750 in taxes. But when you have that kind of money, you are able to afford the accountants that can teach you how to protect yourself. So one of the things that Dr. Cherie Phillips, who is one of our economists here at the 10K Project, said is underneath a certain income level, it doesn't matter who wins the presidency, and over a certain income level, it doesn't matter who wins the presidency. So we want to be, now for social reasons, obviously, we are a lot more cautious than that. However, for economic reasons, I want to be in a position where it doesn't matter who wins the presidency. I'm going to be fine. And the truth is, I'm going to be fine either way. So I'm not going to sit here and lie to people and say I'm not. But I would like to, number one, get Talisha to give us her comments while I prep a little bit about the presentation for those people who are here tonight that don't know exactly what's going into the Family Wealth Challenge. I want to be able to tell people that. So Talisha, any final comments about the copper beech tree?
I think that's a good analogy for everybody to understand, what it takes. We understand that this is not something that is going to be instantaneous, and we really need to remind ourselves about that. And it's not something that we can, kind of circumvent or speed up. The process is what it is. And if you're dedicated to that, then you're going to have to recognize some of the, benchmarks and put those in there for you to feel like you've done what you need to do, but you're not going to see it into the full fruition of it. And that's something that you'll have to come to grips with. And I think it's more important in the certain sense to ask yourself the questions of what do you need in order to make this successful for you in the short term, and how to make it successful in the long term for your family.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen here. This is 5 minutes. We are introducing everyone to the Black Family Wealth Challenge. It's all about a little known wealth building tool that we as families can use to build 7 figures of wealth, starting with just $100 per month per family member. This all got started with an interview that we did on July 30th, 2020, with a gentleman named Colonel Frank Preston and another gentleman named Robert Cook. And you can see, if you're on Instagram, you can't see quite here, but come to @Black10K Project on YouTube or Instagram, or Facebook, and you can see my screen. So I want to let everyone know that. Okay, so on here for everybody in Zoom and Facebook and YouTube, this is one of the pictures of us interviewing this family that started off at $25 per month per person. And now they have 7 figures of cash and assets. And at the bottom of the screen, one of the things that was their foundation was this book called Family Wealth, Keeping It All in the Family by James Hughes Jr. I met Colonel Preston over 5 years ago. I belonged to an organization called the Retired Military Officers Association. And I was never a military officer, but they let me in because they had opened it up to some civilians. And these are Black gentlemen and ladies who were generals and admirals and colonels, and they had reached the highest heights of the military in terms of military service, and most of them had become business owners. Well, Colonel Preston wasn't a business owner per se, but he would come into the meeting every single month and he would raise this book up and he would say, Black people, it is time for us to get our families organized. I organized my family. I used the principles in this book to do it. And you need to think about organizing your families as well. And for the first couple of years, I got the book, but it sat on my shelf. And then one weekend, I was bored, I'll admit. I read the book and I thought, oh my goodness, my parents never taught me anything like this. Is this how the game is really played? I had great parents. I wouldn't want any other parents, but they still didn't teach me these things. They didn't know these things. So after that, I started talking with Colonel Preston. He said, if you ever have a group of people that want to hear our story and how we did it, let me know. I'll come and I'll speak with them. So when the 10K project started, I asked Colonel Preston if he would come and speak to our group. He said, yes, I'm going to bring my nephew. We all hopped on Zoom. Many of you were there. We had over 100 people live listening to this family and their story. And sadly, Colonel Preston died in September. So in a way, this is a way for us to honor him because he cared about the Black community. He cared about us. He knew we could do it. He knew we could do things like this. And we were privileged to be able to memorialize his story through that family bank interview that we did with him and with Robert Cook. So we can build economic empires that serve our families for the next 100+ years. Here's a lesson, another lesson from the Family Bank book. I talked about this before. There are 3 forms of capital. That's human, intellectual, and financial. A lot of times we just focus on the financial capital without focusing on the stewardship of the human and the intellectual capital. The concentration on financial capital only may cause a family to go out of business in 1 generation. So we have to be holistic about the way that we do our family wealth as Black people. So one of the things you may be asking is, will this work for me if and my family. Will it work for me if I'm single? Will it work for me if I do it with friends? Will it work for me if I just want to do it for my grandkids and benefit them? Some people will say, I don't want people in my business. That is fine as well. Family, in general, it says 2 or more people, but if you just decide to do it by yourself, you actually can do that as well. So you can leverage the Family Wealth Challenge to start your family bank in 8 weeks or less. We're having 7 sessions, 7 masterclass sessions. They're every Monday at 8 p.m. They start on this coming Monday, November 9th. The first session is an in-depth overview of the idea of starting a family bank. Session number 2, we have a gentleman named Calvin Williams who is coming to talk about creating your family wealth plan. He is a wealth planning coach, and this is a 100 to 150 year wealth plan. Session number 3, sometimes the issue may not be mom or dad. Sometimes the issue could be other members of the family. So we're having a family therapist come in to talk about how to have these difficult money conversations around the Thanksgiving table or just with family in general. We're also having a woman who is an estate planning consultant come to talk about estate planning as well. Some of you live in Ohio and Big Mama has 9 acres in South Carolina. What do you do? Estate planning is so important. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about, our celebrities not having wills. We got to figure out how to bridge that gap. The next session is all about the family bank setup and governance. Governance is a fancy term for how are things going to operate. So we have an accountant and an attorney coming to talk with us about that. Then session number 5, tax savings. Some of you will see a direct impact in the first year because there are tax deductions you can take when you set up a family bank. Session number 6, reading your financial statements. Every business has a financial statement, and we have an accountant coming to show us how to read our family bank statements. And session 7, once your family bank is set up, you'll need to have assets to put into it. We have a couple of people coming to talk about some of the assets that your family bank can own. So the total value of that is $697 for all of those sessions. And again, this is going to work for Black people who want to close the wealth gap, for families that want to create generational wealth, for elders who want to inspire the young people within their families to lead, for young people who want to convince their elders to set up their estate plans to leave a legacy for future generations. It's going to work for wealth builders who want to learn about alternative investments. And it's going to work for parents who want to teach their kids financial literacy, but need the tools to help them do so. And my canvas seems to have gone away. Well, anyway, you're here on the screen here. So you get the family bank interview, the master class, the wealth resource list, Colonel Preston's original partnership agreement. So you don't have to start from scratch with knowing what a partnership agreement is going to look like. However, we do tell people to talk with your attorney. Don't just use these documents verbatim. Also, some of you may need a sample meeting invitation for your family. We have a sample invitation for you and a sample sample agenda for your first meeting. So you're not starting completely from scratch. And you get invited to our members only Facebook group. Total value is $1,635. And if all the challenge did was help your family get on the same page about building your wealth, would it be worth it? If all the challenge did was suggest that Black professionals who could work with your family to set up the next generations for financial success, would it be worth it? And if all the challenge did was gave you a network of other Black wealth builders that are serious and taking action, would it be worth it? So you're not going to pay $1,635 in order to be a part of the Family Wealth Challenge. Family Wealth Challenge is $100 to participate in. And you'll also be a part of the 10K project. Current 10K project members, you are already grandfathered in. You do not need to pay any additional money. We also have a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you are new to the 10K project, you come in because of the Wealth Challenge, you don't like what you are receiving, 30 days from now, contact me and we will give you your money back. And if all of this wasn't amazing enough, we're going to also in January release 3 interviews about alternative investments as well. So I have 3 different people who are Black, who actively invest in alternative investments. They are going to have interviews with me and I am going to share those with you. So value of that is $597. Then in February 2021, I keep forgetting to change that date. So February 2021, every Tuesday in February 2021, we are going to have an in-depth discussion about the Family Wealth book. We're going to have a book club around this. They say if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in the book. Well, you know what? A few years ago, we said no more hidden figures. Now we're saying no more hidden wealth secrets. We are coming for them. We're looking for them, and we are going to uncover them in this book. And the value of that is millions to your future generations. So once again, I don't know where everything is here, but I just want to recap. Okay, Canva's really messing up. Sorry, guys. Anyway, you can come to familywealthchallenge.black in order to check out the Family Wealth Challenge. I apologize. Next time I will not trust Canva. Next time I will download the presentation into PowerPoint. I want to say one other thing. We do have an ulterior motive. And that is the 10K project is building the nation's largest community of Black individuals who want to do alternative investing. And we have applied with the SEC and FINRA to do something called equity crowdfunding, to be an equity crowdfunding portal. Fancy term, simple concept. Crowdfunding is when a whole bunch of people get together, put money together in order to achieve some sort of mission. So you've heard of it with GoFundMe, for example. Equity crowdfunding is when the community is able to put a whole bunch of money together in order to invest in a business in exchange for partial ownership or equity or shares in those businesses. We have applied with the SEC and FINRA to be an equity crowdfunding portal for Black-owned businesses in the United States. We have already gotten our check mark from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We are applying with FINRA. We have hired competent legal counsel. She's helped other people get through this process. Our team has been fingerprinted. We had to do FBI fingerprinting and background checks and all of that stuff. It does take government approval for this to be done. And the ruling just came down that the government is increasing the amount of money that businesses can raise through this process. It was $1,070,000. In 2 months, that amount is going up to $5 million a year. So the 10K project is a simple concept. If 10,000 people come together, put in $100 each into a business, that's $1 million. We can start funding our own businesses, profiting from our own innovation, creating jobs, and building Black wealth. That is our ultimate ulterior motive, is to have a group of people who want to do this with us. So entree into it is familywealthchallenge.black, familywealthchallenge.black, or you can come to the10kproject.com. Either way, you're grandfathered into the challenge, you're grandfathered into being a 10K project member, and you will receive notification if and when, because we have to say that for legal purposes, if and when we are approved by FINRA. We already got our check mark from the Securities and Exchange Commission. So with that, Talisha, I went over just a little bit, confused with my presentation here. Do you have anything else to say with regards to that whole process?
I think the process is very simple. And to tie back into the book, we talked about that copper peach tree or beech tree, excuse me. That's a tree that bears fruit. And this is one of those great opportunities that we were blessed with the seeds from, Colonel Preston, but this is our chance to do something with those. And this is the bearing of the fruit that comes to full fruition if we do what we're supposed to do here. And this is a great opportunity to learn among like-minded people. Like, we're not going to get it right the first time. It's not meant to be, this whole pristine process. It's going to have some, oddities, some challenges, some obstacles, but here we're giving you some of the tools that you can start with. And we're also giving you a community to have further conversations so that you're never left through the process of like, here you go and just do it. We are not Nike. We are here to help you along the way, each and every step, because we're doing it along with you. So I would say take full advantage of this opportunity because it is ripe.
So with that, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight with us. I hope that you will become a part of the Family Wealth Challenge. We're so excited to have all of our new members coming on board. And, if you're saying, hey, this is my time, I want to leave 2020 better than when I entered it, then the Family Wealth Challenge could definitely be a way for you to do that. So thank you so much, everybody, and good night.
Good night.